would like to call to order this meeting of the Maplewood City Council for Monday, August 12th. And we have two volunteers that I volunteered, two young ladies in the first row that are going to lead us in the pledge. So will you step up to the microphone, please? Come on, you can do it.
Ready? Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, I would like the city clerk to please take roll.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Knudsen.
Here.
Councilmember Neblett.
Here.
Acting Mayor Juneman.
Here.
And Mayor Abrams is not with us tonight.
Thank you very much. As the mayor usually does, she focuses on something good that's going on in Maplewood, and that's kind of hard to find how to narrow it down to just one thing, but we'll try for one. And tonight I've chosen National Night Out because it was just last week, and we had a very successful National Night Out in this community. So I'd like to call on Police Chief to just summarize it for us a little bit. Chief?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. It was a great night. It always is on National Night Out, but the weather cooperated, which was fantastic. There was a number of really big parties this year, whether it was some of our churches or some of our businesses in town, some of our newer apartment complexes. But this year, I believe we had a record of over 60 parties, literally thousands of people that turned out. We had a good number of police and police reserves out. We had our fire EMS out. We had city department heads, of course, our elected officials and others. And it was really a great night for us to be able to interface with our community and hear their concerns if they had them, but really just continue to build that relationship and get to know them a little bit better on a really special night. It's also a great opportunity every year for neighbors to just get out and meet each other. In our busy lives where people seem to be going 4 or 5 different directions at once, it's always great to get to meet your neighbors from down the block and get to see what's going on in their lives and how we can continue to work together to look out for each other and build better, safer, and more connected neighborhoods.
Thank you, Chief.
A quick comment.
Certainly. Councilmember Knudsen.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I just have one comment that I tried to get to a number of those events, and I didn't want to use my phone, necessarily with the hands-free thing. So I saw an ambulance, and I thought, well, I'm going to follow that ambulance. Unfortunately, we ended up in Little Canada, so finally found my way to the right place. And I did mention it to the two paramedics.
And it was a great night. I too found, and there were people who hadn't had parties for years who thought it was time to reactivate their neighborhoods. So it was a really great night. If you weren't as fortunate to be in part of one this year, then you plan one in your neighborhood for next year. City Manager Coleman. Oh, sorry.
Thank you,
Councilmember
Acting
Smith.
Mayor. I actually was one of those neighborhoods who hadn't had an event in a while, so I took a little bit different tack and stayed home this year, and we hosted the party at our house. And as the chief says, it was a great opportunity for us to get to know some neighbors. We're relatively new in our neighborhood, and so we met a whole bunch of folks from around the neighborhood. My son made some new friends from kids we didn't know were around, so he's sort of expanded our local roving troop of kids in the neighborhood, and it was just great. And I missed being out and going to other parties, but it was really a lot of fun to experience in that way. So. And big thanks to Public Safety for all the support you give. It makes it a lot of fun to have the city show up to these events and support folks. And I know it's a huge undertaking to get to 60 parties in one night. So really appreciate that effort.
And as always, we have some great cooks in this city.
Mm-hmm.
Good thing it's only one night a year. So thank you to everyone who participated. Again, if you didn't, next year. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Smith, seconded by Neblett. Is there any discussion or any additions? Wow, they don't want to talk tonight. Holy smoke.
Got a lot to cover.
Okay, since no one wants to say anything more, all in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes all, thank you. Now we go for approval of the minutes. First, we have the July 22nd City Council Workshop minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Knutson and seconded by Smith. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And the July 22nd City Council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Neblett, seconded by Smith. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Thank you. Now we move on to appointments and presentations, and I don't really want to jump the gun or anything, but we'll go through our couple of mundane ones, and then there's a really nice one tonight, as you probably know, some of you. We have a new member of the police department, and he's, no offense to the officer on two legs, but I think the four-legged one is probably a little more popular.
Yeah, what a great night for him to come.
Yes. Okay, on to administrative presentations, the city council calendar update. City Manager Coleman.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Juniman. This is just meant for information for the council and also for members of the community. It talks about our upcoming agendas and workshops and what we'll be talking about at the meetings. At our next meeting on August 26th, at our workshop, we'll be addressing the 2020 budget again and hopefully have some more firm numbers from Ramsey County on our market valuations, which will help us determine our budget. And we'll hear an update on our rental licensing program, which we hope to enact next year. On September 9th, we will also have another last look at the 2020 budget before we actually set the preliminary levy for the budget that evening, and we hope to adopt the rental licensing ordinance that evening. There aren't any new items under council comments or things for us to work on that is new to report on. I would say that we do have some upcoming community events that I just highlight real quickly. On the 13th, which is tomorrow evening, there'll be a community outreach event with the Mississippi Street Apartments with our police department, and I'm sure there'll be some other departments involved in that as well, Park and Rec and possibly Public Works. Also, tomorrow night is movie night at the Bruntrup Farm. That's always fun. We get a lot of families attending those events. They're very well received by the community. And then on the 17th is our summer block party at the Rice and Larpenter for that community and some of the planning that's been done the last couple of years. It's a celebration of that and just a way to get to know some of the people in that area. And that's at the southwest corner of Rice and Larpenter. And then, Mayor, I think Councilmember Smith has a comment, and then I'd like to take a couple minutes, if you would allow, to say farewell to our Assistant City Manager, Mike Funk.
Oh, you mean that quitter guy?
Quitter guy. Brian first.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. City Manager Coleman, just to make sure that I understand the process for the rental licensing ordinance, we'll be workshopping on the 26th, in the meeting on the 9th. Is that a multi-vote, or is that a single night, single vote ordinance change?
One night, I think, isn't it? I'm going to defer to Mr. Thompson.
Acting Mayor, Council, I think after some further conversation last week, I think what we decided is that the first meeting in September would be the workshop to review the ordinance, and then the second meeting in September would be for consideration of the adoption of the ordinance, given that Mayor Abrams will be back for both of the meetings in September.
And is that a single vote, or is that multiple votes?
It's just one, it only requires action by the council on one regular meeting agenda.
Okay, and are we going to be doing a public hearing, or are we?
That'll be the 26th, right? Or the
Correct. At the second meeting in September, we would do a public comment. It's not officially a public hearing, but we would notify rental property owners, license holders, and tenants about that meeting allowed for public comment.
The 21st. Yeah.
So that'll be September 21st that we'll
Yes.
have the public. Okay, I've had some residents reach out with interest in testifying, so I want to make sure I'm giving them the right information,
Good.
since I've already given the wrong information once, so.
All right. So can I go ahead?
One more item off of the calendar I'd like to call people's attention to on the 21st, the Celebrate Summer event, end of summer at Edgerton Park. Thank you.
Yes. On
City Manager
8/21.
Coleman.
Okay. So, Mayor and Council, I think that you're aware that Mr. Funk, our Assistant City Manager, HR Director, is leaving us on August 23rd. So this is his last council meeting. I'm glad we got a good one. Packed the room. Saying goodbye is hard. I kind of liken this to when my son went off to college, and actually Mike has a kid that's going off to college this year too, is you're really sad that they're leaving, but you know that both of us are going to be okay, right? So I met Mike several years ago. I can't remember how many now, probably about 9 years ago. We were in a city manager peer group together, and it was a group of city managers who got together on a monthly basis to help each other talk through mutual problems and coach each other and help each other. And I knew that there was something special in Mike. And so when he left his job that he was in, I hired him to come in and help me with contract negotiations in late 2014, right after I'd been appointed city manager. And then in February 2015, he was appointed to be the acting city manager in February. And I remember when Mike and I were talking about him coming to work here, we talked about all of the opportunities that we would have together, because there were lots of them. There were lots of challenges, and an $80 million budget deficit, bond debt, and we had a lot of things to talk about, but we also had a lot of shared values, and that was the thing that hit for our really, I think, successful relationship. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of Mike's major accomplishments. There's too many really to talk about, but one of the things that I really appreciate what he did was the purchasing of the NeoGov software. That's a HR platform which allows us to do our performance reviews online, our onboarding, our recruitment process, all of this stuff, just really very efficient way to do things. It also really created more meaningful conversations with our employees through that process. It really, it wasn't just checking boxes and ranking 1 through 5, it was actually having a conversation with our employees, and I think it's been well received by our department heads and all of our employees, and I really appreciate that. We also just finished up a new program that we're starting this fall. It's called Maplewood U, and we're creating it's called Lead Academy. And that's it's going to be a new leadership program. It's going to be a 7-month program with every month we have a different content that we're talking about with, we're going to target about 11 or 12 employees as part of our succession planning to build up our new leaders to take our places when we leave. And that's something that I asked Mike to do when he started about 4 years ago, was to get us going on succession planning, because that's really, really important to an organization. The other thing that was just completed was the personnel policies. He did a complete overhaul of that. Involved many employees, myself, our city attorney, the league, our HR attorney. Complete overhaul. That hadn't been done since 2011, so it was quite an undertaking, and we have that document now completed. Also, I think the biggest thing I think he did was our strategic planning. He helped us tighten up those strategic objectives with the council. He helped how we do reporting and analyze our data. We have reached new levels, I think, in performance measurement, data reporting, operational effectiveness. I really think employee morale has increased. He also supported me to a great degree on our strengths training, which I think has helped morale as well, and enhanced transparency with staff, council, and the public with our strategic planning. And I think you saw in the FYI a couple weeks ago, Mike and Lois were featured in a story about what we've been doing with our software helper on that, Invisio, and the influence the city of Maplewood has had on their whole program, because we've really done it well. So that's just a small representation of Mike's accomplishments and contributions to the city of Maplewood. Most of all, I'm going to miss his sense of humor. It's really different. Bizarre, yeah. But he also had a very thoughtful approach to the challenges and problems that we had to face. So thank you for your service, your support, your leadership, and your professionalism. Good luck.
And who will I harass? I have no idea.
I don't know, Brian?
Nah.
I think Mike might want to say
Okay,
something,
Mr.
too.
Funk, you would like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you. Well, I didn't know I have quite the audience for this evening, but thank you for the kind words, Ms. Coleman. And, saying farewell to you, the mayor, the council, a number of coworkers in the room here, and all of our professional colleagues is probably one of the most difficult tasks I've had to do since joining the city of Maplewood 4.5 years ago. I've worked with every department at one time or another throughout my tenure, and when I started here, I felt immediately welcomed and embedded immediately into the culture here at the city. I appreciate everyone wishing me congratulations and good luck, even if our interaction with some of our staff was just a quick hello in the hallways. It's emotional for me as well. That's why I had to write this down. I also appreciate the behind-the-scenes goodbyes and often the unseen high fives from the union steward negotiating teams. And although I think they are the happiest I'm leaving. Finding the right words to thank everyone on our team is impossible, but I will say this, that we have a rock-solid management team. I think, frankly, in my 22 years working in local government, probably one of the best I've ever worked with, and I don't say those words lightly. And my experience has been working with the city that if I ever needed anything, wanted to bounce off an idea, needed to just talk something through, I didn't have to turn too far to find some really great people on our staff. Hopefully I've been able to teach you as much as you've been able to teach me along the way. In particular, I want to thank my boss, City Manager Melinda Coleman, for giving me this amazing opportunity and allowing me to continue my servant leadership as a local government professional. Local government's my career, and I've cherished every moment of it. This decision wasn't easy, and I'm sad to say that I'm leaving, but the opportunity with the city of Minnetonka was just too great to pass up. And for those that don't know, it's where I live, is Minnetonka. And I say that because I'm also looking forward to being able to own a dog, because now I can go home over my lunch hours, and as my wife said, cook dinner every night. She's already prepared a menu and a quite exhaustive shopping list.
Good for her.
But I do hope to stay in touch in all seriousness with all of you in the future. Hopefully we'll see you at League of Minnesota City events, Metro Cities events, and so we're not that far away, and the city world is actually very connected. And as I've reflected back on my accomplishments, I'm really proud of where we've been and what we've been able to do. And City Manager Coleman, you've mentioned a number of those with NeoGov, our wellness program, the succession planning efforts, our health insurance. You'll get some good news on that coming up. Strategic planning, performance measures, and the list could go on. And I could go on, but I'll stop there. I just wish all of you and the city the best of luck in your continued success, and thank you again for everything. You will be missed. So,
Thank you very much, Mr. Funk. And thank you for your years of service. We have no council presentations. Boo-hoo. I don't know, nobody wanted to say anything. So now we get to the most fun of the night, the reason we're glad we're here, actually. And that would be the introduction of a new K-9 officer, Ronan. I believe that's up to the chief.
Acting Mayor and members of the council, Lieutenant Brian Beardeman supervises our K-9 program. He himself was a K-9 officer for a number of years, and now helps to oversee the training and all of the different things that we do with our K-9s. And so I'm going to give it to him to introduce Officer Demling and his newest partner.
Thank you, chief. Welcome, Lieutenant Beardeman. Welcome.
Welcome.
Wow, all black.
City Manager, Council, police dogs are trained for a multitude of things. Sitting quietly at a council chambers is not one of them, so we'll see how this goes. The Maplewood Police Department has a long and rich history of canines dating back to 1977, which coincidentally was my birthday when I was born. During this time, 12 canine teams have served the city of Maplewood and its citizens. Officer Joe DeMulling and his canine partner Ronan, who are with us here tonight, is one of those canine teams. Officer DeMulling first started his canine career back in 2013 when he and his new German Shepherd partner named Brix began working together. For the next 5 years, this K-9 team worked the night shift and attended countless community events. On November 4th, 2018, Bricks began showing signs of distress. Despite being transported to an emergency vet, Bricks passed away on November 5th. The agency lost one of its family members. This loss hit the department and Officer DeMulling very hard. This story will get better. Officer
He thinks
DeMulling
we're
spent the
boring.
next couple of weeks discussing with his family, friends, and partners whether or not to continue his role as a K-9 officer. The department was happy to hear that Officer DeMulling chose to step up and continue his role as a handler and accept a new K-9. In January 2019, Officer DeMulling was teamed up with a 1.5-year-old German Shepherd dog, which you see here tonight, named Ronan, and he's from the Czech Republic. Police canines live with their handlers while off duty, and Ronan quickly fit into the family and shares the house with Officer DeMulling's wife, Melinda, and his 2 daughters, Emma and Isabel, who are also with us tonight. The K-9 team started K-9 school March 25th and graduated the physically demanding school 4 months later, and by all accounts, 15 pounds lighter. Ronan is trained in tracking, searches, articles, obedience, agility, apprehension, as well as narcotics detection. This K-9 team is certified by the United States Police Canine Association, as well as the National Police Canine Association. Ronan is a very social dog, which makes him especially great fit for the departments such as Maplewood, which prides itself on community outreach. Officer DeMulling has told me in the past that one of the most rewarding parts of being a handler is community outreach. City Manager, Council, at this point, I'd like you to join me in welcoming our newest K-9, Officer Joe DeMulling and K-9 Ronan.
Isn't he gorgeous?
Officer DeMulling would like to say a couple words, and if you guys want to do photos.
Yes, of course.
I guess, I just want to stand up here and just say thank you. While I have the moment, I'd like to thank the chief and our command staff just for the opportunity to work with another dog. It's a lot of fun. It's extremely rewarding, and it means a ton to me. As you can see, he's got a lot of energy. So I also want to thank, obviously, you guys for just believing in and seeing all the positives that can come out of having a K-9 unit in a department. Whether it's their ability to help solve crimes, help keep my fellow officers safe, and then the ever so important, like Lieutenant Bierman said, just the community engagement. A lot of people will hear what these dogs are capable of, what they're trained to do. They'll be surprised that they're also very social and approachable, and people can sit up here and pet them. I think he wants to get fed, so make me hurry up. So, and then, most importantly, I just want to thank my wife for all the being so receptive and understanding, and all the countless hours I've invested into him. Whether it's coming home late from a 12-hour shift, or just a lot of times I'll tell her, hey, I'm going to go out in the yard and work with the dog for 10 minutes, and 45 minutes later I might walk back in the house. So with that, I just want to say thank you for all that, and thank you, my wife and kids. So.
I think maybe that might be the most active child in your house. Yes, thank you for wanting to continue with that service. We appreciate it. Photo op. This ought to scare the dog out of his mind.
Yeah. You know how you are on the camera. All right.
Good? Good. All right.
You keep changing these settings.
Well, that was fun.
That
Can we do it over again, like in another 20 minutes? And on to, this is important, but I got to say, it's not quite as much fun. I'm sorry. We are fortunate because of our wonderful financial director and our city manager that once again, we have been presented with the GOFA Distinguished Budget Presentation. And is this yours? Oh, Ms. Paulseth? Me? Okay.
Thank you, Acting Mayor and Council. I believe that this is the 34th time that the city has received this budget award from the Government Finance Officers Association, so it is an honor. We do tend to receive this every year, so I won't belabor it, but I wanted to read a couple of things that the national reviewers said about the budget this year. So we get a significant number of comments telling us what they liked and what they think that, how they think we could improve our budget document. So I wanted to read one of the things that one of the reviewers said, because I think it really speaks to the management team that we have here and the city council and city manager. The reviewer said, "The city demonstrates a superior strategic planning approach. The integration of form and substance allows for real understanding of the city's direction. The mayor and council respond to the need for detailed programmatic direction through series of entity-wide goals and objectives supported by detailed action plans. The development of strategies throughout the organization supports these directives." So the last couple of years, we have been trying to integrate our strategic plan and our budget process much more closely. And we're presenting that along with the associated performance measurements in our budget in a way that looks very integrated and aligned. So he goes on to say, "The budget offers a review of short-term factors that influence the delivery of services. A clear connection is made between organization-wide factors and how they factor into the initiatives that fulfill the city's direction. The factors speak to budget formation and provide a base from which to build the narrative. Through this process, the entity offers insight into its decision-making approach." So I won't read any more, but I just wanted to, to point out that, even through reading our budget document, they're able to tell what type of strategic planning processes we have going on in Maplewood here. So I thought that was very, very nice.
Well, I have to say, as usual, when staff is recognized for their good work, they always try and say it's because of us, and that's really not terribly true, but whatever. Yes, we try and follow your guidance, and yes, we try to listen to the city manager and her wisdom, but if you two didn't bring us something that was worth doing, this wouldn't be here. So our many thanks to you. Congratulations again.
And I'd like to thank the finance staff as well. If we could just get a dog, I think it would be perfect.
And so it begins.
Okay, now that we finished with the dog and the important presentation, now we get to the consent agenda. Woo-hoo! The necessary business, but we'll get to the big, I think, the big thing of the night, which seems to have attracted a great audience. But when we're moving to the consent agenda, these are items which are considered routine and are often approved by one motion of the council. If a council member requests additional information or wants to make a comment, then that item can be highlighted or pulled. And we have item number 8 is just going to be highlighted by Mr. Funk. And then if anybody else has anything they wish to highlight, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Could we also highlight item 3?
Certainly. Okay, let's highlight item 3.
Acting Mayor and members of the council, as we discussed, I believe at the last council meeting, we were in a competitive process in the police department with the Minnesota Department of Commerce. We applied for a grant, which would be a 2-year grant, which would fully fund an auto theft detective to work on issues of auto theft and car break-ins in the city. And so we applied. We had the backing of a strong segment of our business community to include retailers as well as auto dealerships, which are obviously often victimized. And we have been awarded that grant. We were awarded 100% of what we asked for, which was the full wage and benefits for a detective for a 2-year period. Our next challenge, obviously, is to do great things with that position and have it refunded, something I'm confident that we will do. As we talked about during my presentation tonight, people's cars being stolen, people's cars being broken into, and crimes that involve autos are serious livability crimes for our citizens. And so understanding that the city has limited means by which to do everything it would want, I think that this grant from the Department of Commerce is a great way for us to be able to fund that. Interestingly enough, if folks at home look at their next car insurance bill, they will see a surcharge on the bottom of it for $1. That goes to the Minnesota Department of Commerce for auto theft prevention, and that's where this money comes from.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you to you and whoever applied for this grant, because a lot of times that's the magic, how well it's written. So thank you so much, and Lord knows we have a lot of citizens with cars, and then we have Auto Alley out there on Highway 61. Okay, item number 8, and that's Mr. Funk.
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor and Council. Reason that we're wanting to just highlight item 8 is just we're going to hand out a slight change to the agenda item, or to the attachment that was in the packet. In summary, what you have before you this evening is the 2019-2020 collective bargaining agreement with the International Association of Firefighters. That's our IAFF. This is Local 4470, and they represent our firefighter paramedics and firefighter EMTs. There are approximately 24 in the group. There are a number of changes to this new contract. Again, it is a 2-year agreement, and this is pretty much in alignment with the other previous 5 agreements that were before you earlier this year. That's why we do have it on a consent item for your consideration. The thing that we wanted to highlight for you this evening is, in what I handed out, is replacing page 8, which is found on page 91 of your packet. This section 8.8 in front of you is a non-budgetary item and really reflects some language around how the firefighter paramedics and our firefighter EMTs bid for their vacations. So it's some language clarification. What was presented to you in the original packet that you got last week was modified as we were tweaking the language to just make sure that the intent was clear. So nothing in the intent was changed from last Wednesday's original packet item. We did add, again, a couple sentences just to make sure that we're clear, because I know that's an important item for our staff. Is how they bid out their vacations, and the timing of those are pretty critical as families make plans. And so what I'm handing out to you again is a revision to that language, no intent change. And so I'd stand for any questions. Otherwise, the contract, I think, stands for itself.
Any questions for Mr. Funk? Okay, then I would entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
The consent agenda items 1 through 8 has been moved by Councilmember Neblett and seconded by Councilmember Knutson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, and now we are on to the public comment period this evening, and I will turn it over to City Manager Coleman.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Juniman, members of the City Council. By way of background, the City Council requested that staff bring forward the topic of raising the legal purchasing age of tobacco from 18 to 21. Currently, Minnesota's legal age is 18. However, as of July 9, 2019, 39 communities and 8 counties have adopted ordinances increasing the age to 21. This campaign has been known as Tobacco 21 or T21. At a workshop we had back in October of 2018 with the Association of Non-Smokers Minnesota, an advocate group for reducing the use of tobacco, the council requested that we hear all sides of the issue, including businesses which hold a tobacco and tobacco purchase license. All city licensed tobacco vendors were notified of this meeting this evening, and they will be given an opportunity to speak to the council. I would just say in terms of recommended action, we're asking the council tonight just to really receive comments from the public on this issue and then provide direction to staff on whether or not you wish to amend the city's tobacco ordinance and related products code. I talked to the acting mayor today, and we would like to request that people, if they'd like to speak, sign up on the sign-up sheet on the back table. If there is someone here that represents a large group of people and you'd like to speak for those people, you will be allowed 5 minutes to speak. Otherwise, each individual speaker will be given 3 minutes to make their statements. So after we do that, council, we will be looking for direction from staff as to whether or not you want to proceed with any new codes or ordinances.
Should we give people time to sign up? We'll give you a couple of minutes if you wish to speak, to sign up, and then I will open the public comment. Mhm. Yeah, well, we'll be discussing it later. Did you get the robocall? Okay. Do I dare start? Or? Okay. It's for the vaping. Well, what the coalition, tobacco coalition people want is for us to limit that to just adult stores so that kids can put their hands on it. Which I'm in favor of, but whatever. We're going to hear sob stories now from all the convenience stores. We're going to hear sob stories from all the convenience stores now. You can still sign up in the back, but we are going to start with the hearing, so could you take your seats, please, unless you're signing to speak? Oh, this is the complete list? Okay, all right. So we'll start by going through the list as listed here, and then I will call on you to see if anyone else wishes to speak, okay? So I'm now opening the public hearing, comment on the tobacco 21 issue. First name I have is Jalila Stuckey. I would ask you that there would be no applause, please. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jalila Stuckey. I am going to be in 6th grade at Harmon Bay Elementary School, and I'm with Girl Scouts Troop 56861. Most of us live in Maplewood. For the past year, our troop has been on the Girl Scouts Agent of Change leadership journey. The journey is comprised of 3 individual badges. Along the way, girls learn how their own power combines into team power and then moves out to become community power. The final step of the journey is the Take Action Project. For this journey, we decided to learn about tobacco and how harmful it is. All of us have relatives who have problems with tobacco. We go out into stores and see tobacco right next to the candy. It's at our eye level, and it's in our favorite flavors like chocolate and strawberry. We want to be the first tobacco-free generation, but we need your help. We went to the Smoke-Free Generation Day at the Capitol Day in February with our older friends who are also here tonight. We listen to them talk about how their friends are using e-cigarettes, and we don't want to see that with our friends when we get into middle school. You can help stop that by raising the age to 21. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you. We appreciate your input. Next, we have Mindy Beeson.
Hi, I'm Mindy Beeson.
And I'm Gabriella. And I'm Morgan.
And we live at 157 Summer Avenue in Maplewood. I also serve as the troop leader for the Girl Scout Troop 56861. As these young girls have learned about the harms of tobacco during their leadership journey, so have I. Here are some key facts that I have learned. I know that tobacco use among youth in Minnesota has increased for the first time in 17 years. This is largely because of e-cigarettes and flavored cigars. As a mentor to these Girl Scouts and as a mother of 5, I find this alarming. I want all children, including my own, to grow up free from the harms of tobacco. Nearly all addicted tobacco smokers started before the age of 21. If youth don't smoke by the time they are 21, they likely never will. Research shows that increasing the tobacco sales age to 21 will result in 25% fewer 15 to 17-year-olds starting to smoke. Tobacco use is also the #1 preventable cause of death in Minnesota. In addition to the toll it takes on lives, it also takes an economic cost. Have you seen the commercial, We All Pay the Price? It states that we're paying $593 per person. Flavors don't help people quit, they addict our kids. Decreasing accessibility is one of the most effective ways to address these concerning products by removing the flavored tobacco products that appeal to youth from stores where kids shop and raising the tobacco age to 21. You will have a major impact on the health of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, Dr. Chris Follert.
Good evening, Acting Mayor and City Council. My name is Chris Fallert. I live at 963 Ferndale Street South in Maplewood, and I practice and teach family medicine at the Bethesda Clinic in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm really pleased you're taking up this issue. Smoking is a leading cause of preventable death in Minnesota, and it kills 6,000 people annually. Adults who smoke have a life expectancy that's 10 years shorter than adults that do not. And I consider nothing more important in my practice than helping adults quit once they've started. But preventing it is much more effective. I suspect tobacco-related health problems have affected many people in your lives as well. It certainly has with me. My father started smoking in the 1950s when the harms of tobacco use were not fully appreciated. His tobacco use that began as a teenager and continued into his 30s ultimately contributed to his early death at 54. Now, I have two daughters that are under 21, and I'm deeply concerned that they and their friends are similarly vulnerable to the effects of a new tobacco threat, which is the e-cigarettes, the flavored e-cigarettes. Although e-cig manufacturers market their products as an alternative to smoking, they are not proven to be safe or effective in helping people quit. Instead, they have proven to be very attractive to young people. Among teens, cigarette smoking has decreased, but e-cigarette use has increased, and nearly 15% of 11th graders have reported e-cigarette use in the past 30 days. When teens are asked why they use e-cigarettes, the top two reasons are that they have a family or family member using them or a friend, and that they like the flavors, which come in things like mango and creme brulee and mint. Sadly, most teenagers even perceive e-cigarettes to be harmless. For example, in a NIH-sponsored survey, only 1 out of 6 teenagers even knew they contained nicotine, and 2/3 thought they just had flavor. But the e-cigarettes are far from harmless, and the harm starts with the nicotine. In one Juul pod, which you'll see in a second, it has the same addictive nicotine content as an entire pack of cigarettes. And the exposure to nicotine in teenagers has some unique effects on the developing brains, affecting attention, learning, and perhaps susceptibility to addiction. E-cigarettes also have toxins to human cells, and they contain aldehydes like formaldehyde that can cause heart disease and lung disease. And we're just starting to see the reports of some of these effects. Last week in Wisconsin, there was a report of 11 cases of severe lung injury in teens and young adults related to e-cigarette use. These kids were hospitalized, and many of them were on a ventilator. So we're just starting to see some of the harms. And so I'm really thankful you're taking up this issue. The ordinance that you're considering has potential to make a great impact, bigger than I can in my office with my patients. So please act soon to raise the purchase age of all tobacco products to 21 and to limit the purchase of flavored products. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Riley Himmer.
Good evening, council members. My name is Riley Himmer, and I live at 1919 Flandreau Street in Maplewood. I'm going to be a sophomore at North High School, and before that, I spent 3 years with the Support Our School group helping educate my peers at John Glenn Middle School. I'm here tonight to ask you to raise the tobacco sales age to 21 and to restrict the sale of all flavored tobacco to help protect the youth of Maplewood. I know that you may think that this is something that the state should do, and you're right, but we've been to the state. Many of us were at the Minnesotans for a smoke-free generation day at the Capitol in February. We talked to our representative, Peter Fisher. He and many others in the House worked hard and passed Tobacco 21, but we weren't able to get it through the Senate. Yes, we need the state to do this, but the youth of Maplewood can't wait. We need to be protected, and we need your help now. We can't wait on the state. Every day at school when I walk into the bathrooms, I smell the candy scent of vapes and e-cigarettes. Flavored e-cigarettes, particularly Juuls and Sorens, these, they're common at our school. They're easy to hide, and they look like flash drives. I see classmates sneak them out in class, and they hide it like in their hands like this, like in the middle of class, and they can take a hit and then either hold it in their lungs until the vapor goes away or blow it into their sleeves. And they're just small enough so they can fit in the front pouch of a backpack. We've always been told that tobacco is bad for us, but vaping is perceived differently. Nobody thinks that it's dangerous. In fact, youth recently testified in front of Congress about how Juul representatives falsely told them that Juuls were totally safe during a presentation to their class. Somebody posted this picture. In the picture, you see they had posted posters in the bathrooms to say not to vape, and they had put it in the urinal, and they put their packagings, like for their Juul pod containers and stuff, in the urinal after they had been smoking. It's easy to get vapes from older classmates, and that's why it's important to raise the age to 21. All of the younger students are in sports or activities with older kids, but not many of us hang out with 21-year-olds. but it's just important to limit the access to flavored products. Nobody vapes plain tobacco. Everybody is using flavored products and getting hooked. Like, for example, I have cotton candy and grape. Thank you for doing your part to help protect us.
Thank you very much for your testimony. David Van Ness.
Acting Mayor and City Council members, I'm actually addressing the council a little bit later in the meeting for a liquor license.
Oh.
That's why I'm on the side.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce Newstead.
Acting Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is Bruce Newstead. I work for an organization called the Minnesota Retailers Association. As the name suggests, I represent retailers, some of which sell legal tobacco products. I also work with a group called the Coalition of Neighborhood Retailers that works on a variety of issues, including some tobacco issues at the city level. I just want to thank you so much for hosting this conversation tonight. Quite frankly, it's important to have a conversation like this and hear all sides. And I can tell you on behalf of myself and others I work with, it's appreciated. I just want to add just a few things tonight as context as you hear from retailers on this conversation. Please know, number one, that I think retailers are actually your strongest partners in keeping tobacco out of the hands of youth and want to remain that. Retailers in Maplewood have somewhat of a 99% compliance record relative to keeping tobacco out of the hands of youth, and we're very proud of that and would like to continue to be a part of what the city does in sharing that goal, because we truly do share the goal of keeping tobacco out of the hands of youth. And along with that, any policy we hope would recognize that largely youth get tobacco not from buying them underage from stores based on that 99%, but from other places called social sources. And that tends to be an adult peer or a legal age peer. So we'd love to have you keep that in mind as well. Point number two, I think you'll hear tonight a little bit about what we call the island effect. And that is when a city looks at a regulation and surrounding communities largely don't. That feels like a little bit of a disconnect in policy for retailers in the area. It sort of feels like we lose and they win. So please do keep that in mind, that there's an island effect that you'll hear about. We've seen sales shift in other markets. Duluth enacted T21 in a flavor ban, and we simply saw empirically sales shift to another community, and that's certainly distressful if your business is suffering and the policy goal isn't being met. Third, I think you'll hear a little bit about financial impacts tonight, and it's probably best for you to hear those individual stories on financial impacts. Know that we have some study data together by an impartial source that would talk a little bit about impacts in Minneapolis as an example, what the potential impact was there for a flavor ban, et cetera, and we'd be happy to provide that. In fact, you may have already seen that, but know that that's available as well. And then finally, just a fourth point, I think you'll hear a little bit about something called a market basket. And that's when somebody stops coming to your store to buy your tobacco product and they actually cease buying everything else that would have accompanied that. And that tends to be really problematic for retailers today too, and I think you'll see that. So I just want to encourage you to marry your policy goals with the potential impact. Know that there are a variety of different thoughts on this, even in the retail community, relative to what T21 looks like in a flavor ban. But know that retailers want to continue to be your strong partner. But also know that retailers are looking to protect the jobs they have in your community as well as the investments that they've made in their stores. So with that, the acting mayor, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ray Muckala.
Good evening, acting mayor and council members. My name is Ray Muckala, and I own a small convenience store called the In-N-Out down on Century in Minnehaha. My family has owned this store for 45 years. And I'm here to talk a little bit about how, as a retailer, how I feel about this issue. I am very much in favor of raising the cigarette age to 21, but I'm not in favor of doing it in this manner. This is the wrong time and the wrong place, not the wrong time, but the wrong place. We need to do this as a larger community on the state level. Our store is right on the county line, and when the flavor ban for cigar products was enacted in Maplewood, we saw quite a flight of those customers across the street, about 50 steps across the street, in fact. And all this, because of the peculiar geography of Maplewood, I mean, we have opportunity to impact a lot more retailers than you would in a normal city that was, configured like a retail or a square. You know, that long, narrow strip that we're in, it just isn't fair to enact this piecemeal. It should be enacted across the entire state. I'm a non-smoker. My children are non-smokers. I've been in the convenience store business, the fuel business for so long. The cigarette portion of it just kind of morphed into our business. It just came in and became part of it, and we find ourselves in a position where we can't just give that up. If we give that up today, we go out of business. So it has to be done very intentionally and very carefully, and we're on board with the ultimate objective, just not the way of doing it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Franklin Maldonado.
Hi, guys. Yeah, my name is Franklin Maldonado. I live at 2080 Prosperity in Maplewood. I just wanted to say, about 6 years ago, my mother passed away from chronic COPD from smoking cigarettes. That was one of the hardest things, even as an adult, to see. At that time, I was smoking 2 packs of Newports a day. And I have little ones at home. They're 7, 9, and 13. And I didn't want to do that to my kids. So I started vaping 7 years ago. And I'm totally for raising the age to 21. I definitely don't want to see my children smoking, or vaping for that matter. But today, me vaping, hopefully I'll be able to live a little bit longer and not do that to my children. I haven't had a drag of a cigarette in 7 years. But I don't want to vape tobacco product and vape cigarette smoke or taste, you know? So, yeah, I'm for raising the age, but taking away, I don't want to go back to smoking, you know what I mean? So I don't think that that's fair. I think that everybody that I know, some friends of mine own tobacco establishments, man, and they are diligent about not selling to minors, you know? That's all I got, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for your comments. Anand Babarwawi.
Hello. My name is Anand Barbarawa, and I actually manage the store, the smoke shop down the street, 2515 White Bear Avenue. I think we all agree tobacco is bad, you know, and we should never really teach our kids to smoke. Or I personally take care of my kids, and I make sure they're not going to smoke. You know, but we also have to think of the other people that they've been smoking, just like as Frankie, and then they're trying to quit, and along with those flavors, you know, it helps a lot. Also, you guys have to understand, we are an adult-only stores. You know, tobacco are a specialty store. You know, we always been in compliance. We always check IDs. We always make sure that, you know, anyone who enter our store is 18 years old or older. We don't even allow kids to come into the store, even along with their parents. And I understand the issue they're addressing, but I mean, if we've been in compliance, and most of these businesses been in compliance, there is another issue. There is someone who's getting those vape or tobacco to those kids. If she's saying, you know, we have it in high school, you know, in class, all of us, a lot of our businesses, and especially Maplewood, been a really good compliance record. I mean, the issue is not our business. The issue is maybe the online market. You know, there is a big online problem. You know, there is other businesses, maybe like they could buy it from, I don't know, other people maybe buying it from you. But the issue is we really have to think of our businesses. You know, this is a big portion of our business. You know, if we raise the age from 18 to 21, I think we will be hit by 25%. Again, if the study and the state shows that this is something in favor for our public health, I'm the first one to do it. But I would want it to be done like very fairly. I would want it to be done like in a state level or like in a federal level. Well, in Maplewood, we're very surrounded by, 6 other cities. You could drive from my store less than half a mile, you're in North St. Paul. So we're not trying really I don't feel like we're going to accomplish much by doing this bill, just because people will drive the extra 1 minute, 2 minutes and buy their product. It's not going to change anything. We will lose more traffic. And in Maplewood, I love Maplewood. I hate to see any customer going anywhere else. And it hurts me because, it did happen when we raised the single cigar to $2.60. And so many customers every day, they walk in and said, oh, I forgot I'm in Maplewood. I have to go across the street, which is fine if that really, again, showing that it's going to help our public health. But anything that done separately is just not fair for our business owner. We are owner operated. We live off our business. We do our job. We work really hard to make sure that those kids, they don't enter our store. I hire extra people. I'm like, this is your job. You make sure anyone with kids, you keep them away from the store. I even feel bad like talking about this subject in front of these kids because, those are little kids that are not supposed to be in this matter, I guess I can't talk anymore. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your comments. Mahmoud Alanta.
Hi, how you doing? So my name is Mahmoud Alanta, and I own a store off White Bear, 2950 White Bear Avenue. And I started my business in January of 2018. And if I know I'd be here today facing kids saying that I might sell tobacco to them, I would not even open my store and go in debt for $150,000 with an overhead of $10,000 a month that I have to feed my kids. Not that I'm feeding my kids because I'm selling tobacco to minors. The young lady, when she said that a group of bad apple in a high school of 1,000, maybe 3 or 5, they taking pictures on Instagram and social media just for fun to make themselves famous. I be punished for that. They got their jewel, like she's showing you that she have jewel in her hand. I know where she got it from. They got it from online businesses. I had parents who comes to my store and said, we had caught our kids with $50 gift card from Walgreens and a click of a button on a phone. And each one of these kids have phones. They could buy whatever they want and it comes to their address at their homes. I never sell it. We never sell it as retailers, and we oppose it. The city, they came into my store 2 times only and checked on the age of 18, and I was approved. I never sell to minors. I would appreciate if they will do it monthly basis. Within 2 years, they show up only 2 times. I would appreciate if they will increase the penalty from $250 to $1,000 or even $2,000 for selling to minors. You could make it a gross misdemeanor, not a misdemeanor. That would be a punishment for somebody who sell a minor. Yes, I will agree to that. But to punish me as a store owner because 5 kids has Instagram picture and saying, oh, we got Juul and we enjoy it and we vaping. Flavor been created for smokers, heavy smokers, like the guy just now he was talking. Imagine you doing a passport application for somebody and he's a smoker and his breath at you with his tobacco smell. You'd be paranoid, you hate it. But somebody who is vaping and comes at you and do an application for a passport, you won't even notice that he is smoking. You won't even notice the smell from his mouth coming out. Some doctors, honest to God, one of my customers, he said he was on 2 packs a day smoking. He's told him, go find the flavor and find an e-cig instead of smoking 2 packs a day and killing yourself by doing that. At some points, doctors recommend e-cig, not to kids. I don't know why even kids are here today. If this is an adult matter, social media could harm kids. Talking on the phone while you're driving harm kids. Guns and liquor harm kids. But, it's your decision in the end. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Brittany Jackson.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, everyone. I don't agree with raising the price. I mean, the age to 21. Like multiple people said, there's more sources where these kids could get this from. Online is one. Family, other friends. Nowadays, money is a big thing. If a 18-year-old comes up to you, hey, I got $20 to go in the store buy a jewel. What's the percent of a homeless man going in the store and buying this for an underage kid, you know? It just doesn't make sense. Kids will get their tobacco from wherever, whether it's stealing it from their mother, their father, their grandma, or going to friends, or maybe crazy enough even to start stealing things. I think most people have been punished. They've been waiting 18 years to buy their own stuff. At the age of 18, some feel like they're grown, you know, so they can go into the store and buy tobacco products just to feel cool. Some of them do that, you know, and it might not even be for them. I really think it might just be a waste of time to do that. Stores will be losing out on customers and money, and vaping is actually kind of good. Cigarette butts, who likes to clean them up, who likes to look at them? Not very many people. Vapes, you don't find broken vapes on the floor, you know what I'm saying? Empty vapes here and there, you know. Once the juice is gone, you refill it, reuse it again, you know. It's kind of keeping the community clean as well, and I believe that it is a little healthier. But kids will find their tobacco however they want, their jewels, wherever. Online does sell them, and there's people outside that does sell products like that too. So,
Thank you. Kevin Menarchik.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm a consumer of tobacco products. I have been for 4 years now. I went to a military academy under high levels of stress. I was smoking, and what stopped me from that is smoking e-cigs. The only thing that, if you were to change it to 21, I would not have been able to stop smoking e-cigs or stop smoking cigarettes at that time in my life. And if you're 18 and you're able to join the military and go off to war and fight for your country, I truly believe you should be able to smoke a cigarette. I think I do agree with it being changed to 21 if it's on a state level, because it truly isn't fair. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Susan Sint.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you for having us here this evening. I am Susan Sint. I live at 1445 Skillman Avenue East here in Maplewood. I also have a business here in Maplewood at 1703 Cope Avenue. It's Simply Vapor. I make a flavored nicotine vaping liquid for the community, and I sell that at local stores. So right now, if I represent the vapor industry, we've designed our product to be an alternative to traditional combustible tobacco cigarettes for people who are already consuming cigarettes. So the idea of changing the purchase age to 21 is just fine. That would help remove access to our product. However, as much as what everybody else has pointed out, at the city level, it just creates a patchwork, and it's still available online and through other people. So we would recommend at the federal level really would be the best. And, perhaps Maplewood could create a resolution that they think the state should support T21 and also at the federal level. So I'm a little bit confused because I was invited here to talk about T21 legislation, but I hear people talking about a flavor ban. So we're not looking at a flavor ban? If we are, I have something to say, but if we're not, then T21, okay.
What'd you say? No, we haven't made a decision at that. We are taking input about the whole
So you
chalupa,
are
as they
taking
say,
input on a flavor ban?
on everything, because we have not made a decision about what it would include.
Because the letter just referred to T21. I didn't realize we were going to be talking about a flavor ban. Because a flavor ban, it would be a direct assault on the vapor industry. If we're concerned about public health, then T21 makes a lot of sense to remove access. But a flavor ban removes access to the harm reduction products that vapor provides. And maybe it's a matter of opinion, a matter of how you look at the data. Right now the federal government is looking at creating a regulatory pathway for vapor products. They're not going to go away. The FDA has created a pathway for these products to be available. The FDA has even said that if everybody could switch from combustible cigarettes to vapor, that would be a good thing. They recognize that on the continuum of harm, vapor's right on target. And so when you talk about flavors, flavors are the key to the exit strategy. That's what makes vapor appealing to tobacco smokers. That's what keeps them away from smoking. It also provides a diversion away from smoking. So in my experience, people who have tried vaping, maybe they like it or don't like it, but they certainly don't move on to cigarettes from there. It's a diversion. And then I heard the doctor refer to aldehydes in
Could
the
you please
liquids.
just finish one more sentence, because you're out of time? You finish the next sentence.
Oh, well, the fact that there's dangerous products out on the streets is exactly why we need to have a regulated environment. We need the gatekeepers. We need the tobacco shops to protect our kids from the products that are available on the streets. So that's a reason to have tobacco shops. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Does anyone else wish to speak to this who has not signed up? Give your name and address, please.
Yes, my name's Chris Turner. I'm with the Association for Non-Smokers Minnesota. My address is actually 2819 Aldrich Avenue in Minneapolis.
Thank you.
We've worked with the youth that were here before you tonight, helping them learn about the harms of tobacco. We've also worked with many of the cities that have increased the tobacco age to 21, and we've worked with a lot of the cities, both Minneapolis and St. Paul, who have restricted the sale of flavored tobacco they restricted it to adult-only tobacco shops, and that's what we advocate for Maplewood to do as well. Not to ban it, but to restrict it to adult-only tobacco shops. What that does is it gets it out of the convenience stores where the youth go into. As the gentlemen have said, the youth generally are not allowed into the tobacco shops. And what we are here to do is we're here to ask you to put health first and to put these youth first and protect them. With both Tobacco 21 and restricting the sale of flavored tobacco, both policies to work on those. Tobacco 21 is one way to stop access to tobacco products, but it's not a silver bullet. It can't take care of the whole problem. And that's why we're also asking you to restrict the sale of flavored tobacco. Combined, the two policies, they're really a 1-2 punch that can really, really help youth and protect them. We made progress at the state this year, but not enough. And as the youth told you, you have to protect them now. And Maplewood is in a unique situation with its borders on other cities, but these other cities are also, they're making progress. When we were here back in October, we hadn't made as much progress, but a lot of cities have gone to Tobacco 21 around you, and St. Paul is about to introduce an ordinance next week to raise its age to 21, and they already have restrictions as well. Oakdale has actually expressed interest in it, so the cities around you are also looking at it. Whether people will go follow through or not. We'll see, but a lot of them are interested as well. One interesting thing, too, from something that you heard tonight, actually, Consumer Reports from the National Association of Convenience Stores, it states that the primary reason that people go into a convenience store is to buy packaged food and beverages. not tobacco. Stores profit more from these products than they do from tobacco products. So just, one note to kind of finish with. So again, we're here asking you to put these youth and their health before profits. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
Hello, members. My name is Cap O'Rourke. I represent the retailers and manufacturers of vapor products. I hadn't intended to speak tonight, but given that you're now taking comments on everything, including flavor ban, I just want to make something clear. I am certainly happy to hear that the Association for Non-Smokers is only pushing for a restriction on flavor to tobacco stores, given that that's a change from previous policy positions in other city council meetings. One of our concerns is policies that have been brought up in other council meetings would be a total ban. This would exacerbate a black market that, as we've seen in other communities across the country, is very viable and will, when there are complete bans on products, whether it be flavored or otherwise, the black market fills in the gaps. And not only do these products come into the communities, they come in, they're unregulated, and their nicotine levels actually become significantly higher than what is available at stores. So if you are considering doing a flavor, any sort of ordinance related to flavor, I would ask that you once again give a 30-day notice to allow people to see the language and the specifics of that. I'd also ask that you limit it to adult-only stores and not do a complete flavor ban. That would, as has been said, in the tobacco products market, traditional combustible tobacco products, about 70% of those products are tobacco flavored and about 30 or 40% are flavored and would be affected by this, whereas in the vapor e-cigarette market, about 95% of our products are flavored and about 5%. So in passing a complete flavor ban, what you essentially would be doing is taking off a product that is the most popular method for adults in Minnesota to try to quit smoking, take away a product that is being prescribed and used in hospitals in the UK, and you would be leaving on a product that everybody in this room understands that if used in a regular way, in the way it's intended, it will kill you. So I want to caution you against how you proceed forward with any sort of flavor ban. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Katie Fleming. I own the Minocco on the corner, Fleming's Auto Service. I just have a question, first of all. Would this also change the age of the cashier that can sell tobacco?
That has not been discussed.
I think there's other issues that need to be discussed before
We
this.
raised it to 18 2 years ago.
Yes, but if you went to T21, or would that raise the age of the people that we can employ as well? Because that would be a big deal.
That has not been discussed, like I said.
I'm also concerned about the increase in theft if you do this. We've seen an increase in cigarette theft since St. Paul was unable to sell menthol anymore, so they are coming into our area. We've seen an increase in theft, so I mean, if they want it, they're going to get it. There should be a plan of action for an increase in theft in these convenience stores and their safety as well. But I think that is this decision going to be made this evening?
No.
So there'll be another opportunity to find out some answers to some questions.
Yes, but we will be, it is up to us which direction we decide to go. And we will probably be making a decision in September.
Okay. I agree also that this should be a federal level, not a city level issue. It does create a substantial loss of business for small businesses. And not only from tobacco, but as we said, they start going somewhere else for their tobacco, they're going to start buying all of their other goods there as well. So I think that was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, one last time. Anyone else? going, gone. I am now closing the public comment time. Okay, council. Who was first? Well, let's just start at the end. We can go this way.
Yeah, work down.
Okay. Councilmember Neblett.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Well, I have to say, I did not anticipate as many issues brought up as we're here today. I also have to say, it would be great if the legislature had taken some action, so no one would be here. And you're right, going across the street from the Maplewood border, it isn't fair. But there's also the broader issue about raising the age limit to purchase these products to 21. I don't think it's unreasonable. And you're right. The gentleman who talked about if you are able to serve in the military, then you should be able to make that choice. I absolutely agree. But I also believe that raising the age limit to 21 to be able to buy these products is still the right thing to do.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is a complicated issue. I want to thank Representative Fisher for the work he's been doing at the Capitol to try to make this happen at the state level, because I also agree this would be best done at the federal or state level. But I think we all know the challenge that folks like Representative Fisher are up against at the Capitol, and that it's difficult. It's more difficult for things to move at the state level than they are at the city level. And oftentimes we've seen that cities do lead in these kinds of situations, like we did with the restaurant smoking ban in other places. I look at this from three perspectives. Number one, protecting the health of our children, which as a father I take very seriously. Number two, protecting the interests of businesses, which I also find to be very important as a business person myself. And number three, protecting the individual rights of adults to make whatever good or bad choices they wish to make that are within the law. And I'm a former smoker. I started smoking when I was about 19 and smoked till I was, till I met my wife. And she was a great secession program. It was not a hard choice at that point, but you know, that was a hard thing to do, to quit, but I'm glad I did. I don't think we know enough yet about e-cigarettes. I think there's such a wide range of manufacturers, and we don't necessarily know what's in all of them. I think we know that there are some problematic things around them, but I don't think we have enough science yet to tell us exactly to what degree that is. However, anecdotally, we know there have been some major issues, whether that's inflammation issues and ailments related to that kind of inflammation, or exploding vape pods or whatever. So there are issues there, for sure. Is it as bad as smoking? I don't know. I don't know yet. Is it good for you? I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure that it's healthier to not do it. That much I will hang my hat on. Because I've been on the fence on this from the get-go, I've been doing some of my own research to educate myself a little bit about this. And I think one of the things I learned on a report from the National Institute of Health that I think is telling is that the overall impact to tobacco sales in the United States, if we went federally to a 21-year age limit, is 2%. the 2% impact on overall tobacco sales. I don't know that that's an unreasonable price to pay to help protect our kids from starting smoking. That said, it's also not insignificant either, but I think it is worthwhile to consider. And then there's the third piece of protecting individual rights. And so from that perspective, I would say I'm leaning towards supporting the T21 age limit, as I think that it's prudent and the cost is worth the benefit. When it comes to flavors, I feel very strongly that at the very least, tobacco shops and dedicated smoke shops should be able to provide adults with products that they like, and they are fundamentally and categorically different, I think, than other kinds of retailers that do cater to a wider age range of folks, and where where it would be easier to market to children within those contexts. I feel like that's one of those things that's probably going to make no one happy, which probably means it's not a bad policy, right? You know, I think as we look at these things, I think the comments are well taken here. I think it's important for us to listen to both sides and figure out how do we achieve the goal of protecting our children's health while doing as little damage as possible to the business of retailers and the individual rights of adults to do what they want. So that's kind of where my calculus is at.
Councilmember Knudsen.
Thank you. I prepared pretty well for the T21, but not so much on the vaping. But I've been in healthcare for 40 years and actually helped set up some of the Bethesda practice when I was with Health East. One of the things that differentiates this from all kinds of other things is the cost on public health and the cost of care. We all share that burden. If you think you pay exactly for smoking, when you sign up for health care and you declare yourself a smoker, you pay more, but not very much. You really don't pay your share. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to sell you a premium, frankly, because the cost is extraordinary. And so over all those years watching really healthcare be somewhat disproportionate, and moral hazard is the way they describe it from an actuarial point of view, and no one pays the fair share for moral hazard for decisions you make. So essentially this is an opportunity to intervene and prevent some of what could happen to young people. So I'm tending to support the T21, and as Brian has suggested, really need to think about the vaping. I think what makes sense is that restricting it to adult decisions makes some sense until we get a little more information about vaping. It's with 35-year-old kids, I don't see much of what goes on in the high school realm these days and all that, so I really appreciate these young people standing up for, really public health is what you're standing up for. With smoking not being so common in public places at all anymore, I think you can, you're not so worried about the effect of smoke. But on the other hand, I think the ability to keep young people from starting. I smoked for a short period of time when I was in the Marines, frankly, because that was the only reward they gave us, you know. When I had a similar experience when I got back, my girlfriend, now my wife, looked at my big hands with this little tiny cigarette and laughed so loud that I quit, you know. So that's shamed, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I've been sitting here longer than anyone else, and so some of you remember way back when we were doing the other part of this. But I have to say, I am, like my colleagues, equally impressed with the young people who have come more than once to state before us how they want help from the adult leaders in their community to prevent harm coming to themselves and their friends. That's an impressive thing for kids. I also congratulate you because I know it's kind of a risk sometimes if you have friends who are on the border of doing those things and they see you up here declaring against it. I know, I taught high school for several years, so I kind of know how the climate can get. So I congratulate you on having something that you feel that strongly about, and you want to protect not only yourself, but other young people. That is really noble. I also sympathize with you with having gone to the legislature. That in itself is an experience you could put in your book when you write one 30 years from now. And as Councilmember Smith said, we applaud Representative Fisher and his colleagues who wanted to do something. And then you go across the campus to the other building and they don't want to do much about anything to make anybody unhappy. I guess they've never heard the old thing about there is no such thing as making everybody happy all the time. And if you make any decisions, somebody's going to be unhappy. Well, they're in the wrong business then if they're an elected official. I think we're not talking about happiness here, we're talking about public health. And so I'm pretty much in the same camp with these two people, and actually with Councilmember Neblett as well. We can have the debate that's been going on since I was young, which is a very long time ago, about what the adult age ought to be. And it's been bounced. And people say you should be able to vote when you're 14, you should be able to vote when you're 18, you should be able to vote when you're, yeah, whatever. We're not going to solve all those problems. But this one isn't about that as much as it is about health, lifetime health. And we do have some pretty good data that says if you don't smoke by the time you're 21, there's a much lower chance that you're ever going to, or if you try it and meet the right woman, you'll quit. You know, that's kind of proven out. So I'm in the camp of, yes, T21 in my mind is a no-brainer. And I also think that selling the vaping products in an adult setting only is the way to go. We've had years of saying, well, we'll tighten up, and if we sell it, you know, at the gas station, come on, who are you kidding? Kids who are 17 or 18 get a fake ID, they go in and buy it, and hand it to the 12-year-old around the corner at the station. Like I said, I taught high school. I might be old, but I'm not forgetful. I just don't think there's any benefit to leaving any access to those products to anybody under the age of 21 years old. After that, you are considered an adult, even by an old lady like me. And if you want to make a mistake that costs you your health or your life, that's your right. Although I'm with him, I kind of don't appreciate having to pay for it in my health care benefits, but that's the way it goes. We live in a society based on kind of taking care of each other. So we can't carry this to the extreme, but I am leaning the same way. And we need to now, I think, give staff some idea, but it's not, I think our conversation kind of tells them they should start looking at our ordinance and see how we adjust it, and then what kind of education we do for the retailers of what we're deciding we think we're going to do. But I really, truly think T21 is a no-brainer, and we hopefully have more brains than that up here. And I really would like to look very carefully at limiting the vaping to people 21 and over. If we don't listen to our youth and we don't tell you you're worth something, what are we doing here? You are worth something, and this is your second go-around sitting in front of us. And by the way, school hasn't started yet, so you actually organize yourself on your own time. That's impressive. Congratulations and thank you. But you can kind of see where we're going. So unless I'm wrong, council, we kind of want staff to look at our ordinance and go toward 21 for sales of tobacco and sale of vaping apparatus and et cetera, only in adult stores. Is that what I'm hearing, pretty much? Wait, anybody else? Okay, I think he wants to say something. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Brian. No, Brian, you're fine.
I was going to say, I think just to be clear, I think we're, and Mr. Beatty can maybe tell me if I'm wrong, but I think state law sort of lumps together e-cigarettes and tobacco as a thing. So if we change the age, we
Okay.
change the age. I think the other question is whether or not to allow the sale of flavored
That's what I'm.
tobaccos and flavored things. And I think where I was coming from was that we consider not a ban, but we consider making those only available through dedicated tobacco shops. Yeah, I'm just clarifying to make
Yes,
sure we're on the
yes.
same page.
So I think that's what I'm hearing from everybody.
We should research.
Okay. So that's where we are, and I believe September is our date for discussing this more in detail and making a decision, correct? Just a second. Okay, Mr. Smith, you had yours on first again.
Yeah, thank you. And I would say I've spoke with, directly with at least one of the smoke shop owners and others. I would like it if maybe between us and between staff, we do reach out to smoke shop owners and you know, have slightly more in-depth discussions about what will work and what doesn't. And, you know, I think it's, this is a good opportunity for us to try to do some good and also partner with businesses through the process to make sure we're not creating unintended consequences or anything like that.
Ms. Nebelet.
The question was also raised about the selling of
Okay, Mr.
products.
Mr.
Is that a,
Mr. Beatty, I can't remember if we made it 18 or 19 for selling cigarettes when we did that change. I know we took away from 16 and 17-year-olds.
Madam Mayor, you're asking about the current ordinance?
Yeah, for selling, the people selling.
Oh, the,
Because we did raise the age.
Yeah, that
like
I
3
don't
years ago.
know.
All right, we'll have to look into that, too. Okay, all right. Yes, well, and that will have to be looked at as part of all this. Okay? Okay, thank you for coming, thank you for your input. We will be discussing it further. Yes, we will let you clear unless you're dying to hear about the Maplewood Nature Center plan, and probably you're not, some of you, although the Girl Scouts probably should. We'll take about a 2-minute break. Back to order, please. We've had like a 9-minute gap instead of a 2-minute, so here we are. We are now moving on to unfinished business, and we're starting with the Maplewood Nature Center Master Plan. On the cleaner side of life.
Yes. Shouldn't be as controversial. So, do you want to call on Audra?
You don't want to cue it up? Okay. City Manager Coleman.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight, we are going to present to you the final version of the Maplewood Nature Center Master Plan. The recommended action tonight is that you actually approve the plan. I would I've asked the staff to try to keep their presentation a little shorter than the number of slides they have. There's a lot of great information in there, and focus maybe on the questions that were raised at the previous meeting when it was presented. Also, there are some things that we might want to comment about, or you might want to give feedback on in terms of the master plan does talk about different improvements over the next 10 years or so. And we're not going to be able to decide those kinds of decisions tonight. Those are all things that would be handled through the CIP on an annual basis. Some of the short-term improvements are already scheduled in our CIP. Many of them will have to be addressed as we move through our 5-year plans every year. So kind of keep that in mind when you hear about some of the improvements that have been identified that are needed at the Nature Center. We understand that those decisions will be made at a later point. And with that, Mayor, would you please call on Audra to start the presentation?
Audra Robbins from Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, members of council. Just a little bit of going to background. Both the Parks and Recreation System Master Plan and the 2040 Comprehensive Plan include recommendations for the city to create a master plan for the Maplewood Nature Center to ensure the wise use of resources, promote effective operations, and to guide future investments over the next 20-plus years. City Council approved the master planning process in July of last year, and HKI was the consulting firm hired to work with staff to create the plan. And with that, away we went and started the process. And one of the key staff members working on the plan, who's worked tirelessly on this effort, on the plan that you'll be hearing about tonight, is Maplewood Nature Center lead naturalist Ann Hutchinson. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ann, and she has a few things to say.
Ann, welcome.
Thank you, City Manager Coleman, Parks Manager Robbins, and members of the City Council. Yes, we have been working really hard on the master plan to engage the community to come up with this roadmap for the future. Numerous stakeholders, visitors, volunteers, commissioners, along with our consultants at HKGI have provided ideas and input for this vision, and we are excited to share it with you. I'll turn it over right now to Brian Hargis, Vice President and Landscape Architect from the Hoisington Kegler Group, and he's going to make the presentation.
Thank you.
Do you have a clicker?
Yes.
We could have a computer.
We see it on our screens? Almost.
There we go.
There we go. Maybe you can click back.
It's still from the work session.
Oh, so we're going to hear about that again?
Nope, I think maybe Steve's just going to close.
I thought it was really good the first time, but really.
I just love the presentations.
Ah,
So
that's
we'll just
it.
open up the one we have. It's on the computer, it just wasn't what was on the screen. No? He just had to close his out. There we go.
Hey, hi-oh.
We got it. It was there.
There we go.
Yep, we're good.
Look at that setting.
Thank you all for having us here tonight to talk about the Nature Center Master Plan here in Maplewood. I'll be brief. We wanted to cover these sort of topic areas tonight. Obviously touch on kind of what's happening today and really where we're going as for the Nature Center. We'll look at the needs assessment, some strategic opportunities, the key action items. We talked a little bit about phasing at the end, and City Manager, I think, provided a good overview of what that means going forward, particularly related to costs. And then we'll highlight a lot of this as we go through the presentation. Just really quickly on the schedule, this began back in October of 2018. It's carried through now to August. We were looking at June originally, but there was a suite of 4 core tasks about assessment, then goals and strategy and overall vision for the Nature Center, and then working through the master planning process and approvals, and a variety of meetings, stakeholder meetings throughout, and I'll touch on those as we get into the community engagement portion of that. So the Nature Center today, for folks that don't know, it's really, the staff really works to stay ahead of trends and establish itself as a leader in environmental sustainability throughout. A number of key elements that they work on today, from coordinating the community garden at Edgerton, buckthorn, citywide buckthorn removal programs, rainwater garden projects. They've been writing up inserts for the season's newsletter, as well as some other features throughout the community. And they provide support to the Minnesota Green Step program, and really provide that educational support for a lot of the environmental ordinances in town as well. The Nature Center staff here is really focused on a written environmental education curriculum that aligns with K-12 science and STEM standards. You can see here there's a variety of programs that they've worked on throughout the Cultural Heritage Program in the image in the lower left. They go to the schools and talk about, in this photo here, the watershed watchers, and then they do some on-site testing with kids. This is some water quality testing they do out at the Nature Center itself. So that's a big component of the Nature Center today. There's a wide variety of diversity in the community outreach that takes place. The listing of the schools that you see here today. The Carver School you can see here on the lower image below as a part of a pollinator walk at Fish Creek out in the community beyond just the Nature Center itself as well. There's still a number of other features that take place. The maple syrupping program with English language learners as a part of that as well. A variety of ages and ethnicities from, you can see the list of a variety of schools and outreach components with this, as well as some of the other programmings that take place here at the Nature Center. Just to sort of ground where the Nature Center sits for those that know this as well as the other outreach piece, this really is the program hub for the community. You can see Maplewood there in the darker purple, the irregular boundary everybody knows. And a variety of activities take place here, from some of the ECFE watershed education programs. They have the birthday party components, the nature play yard, exhibit and interpretations, variety of demonstration gardens throughout. But additionally, they also look at some of the other outreach components that take place across the community. You can see these with some other monitoring locations, service learning programs at areas like the Priory or Beaver Creek. So it takes place there as well, in addition to other locations throughout the community, including parks like Gladstone Savannah and a variety of other locations as well. Volunteering and service is a key component to the Nature Center and its success. The staff trained and coordinated volunteers that contributed more than 2,100 hours of labor and projects across the city of Maplewood, which is an outstanding number. Calculate that to the value it provides for the community. It's quite impressive. And they do a variety of activities and program support help throughout. You can see them all listed here as they continue their service to the community through that. So the background and history of what the Nature Center is, and now sort of what we heard through our planning process. There was a few forms of community engagement that took place. We had a general use questionnaire that was posted on the city's website, messaged through the Facebook page and other locations. There were hard copy questionnaires as well that were provided at the Nature Center. Obviously the notifications that were in the Maplewood Living newsletter. We also had 3 special stakeholder input sessions with key folks who will participate in and around the Nature Center, as well as a really constructive peer group session we had with other Nature Center administrators within the metro area to talk about operations, maintenance, a lot of the factors that are going to make Nature Centers very successful places. And then we had an open house on May 23rd. Some of the great findings we had through this piece were a number of community comments through the online survey. We think it might be a top number for community outreach to the community online survey piece, and really diversity of the comments and the correspondence that came through from race and ethnicity all the way through to age groups as well, school groups intermixed throughout. So, in addition to So everything that the Nature Center offers today, some of the comments that we heard that folks were thinking about, were expanding some programs about the impacts of humans on nature, everything from composting resources, recycling impacts and tips, etc. Offering program and events for the neighborhood cities preserves, expanding wildlife viewing areas, and showcasing more live animal exhibits within the Nature Center, and other opportunities for specialty hikes, luminary hikes, or art and photography classes as well. So where we're going, this sort of summarizes some of the findings we had as a part of the master plan piece. A couple of key components here as we look to defining what that is. The mission is really who and what the Nature Center is today, vision, where it wants to go. The guiding principles are sort of those decision factors that folks like you and others will look at as we begin to plan and think about budgets as they are investigated over the next few years. And then those strategic opportunities that could take shape that we're sort of outlining as a part of this plan. So the mission for the Nature Center is to Maplewood Nature Center's mission is to enhance awareness of land, water, and wildlife resources, and to empower the community to become stewards of the environment. Now the vision focusing more on the future and serves as this sort of inspiration and motivation of what it wants to become. The Maplewood Nature Center is the city's hub for environmental education, natural resource management, and stewardship. So how we get there, looking at the guiding principles, these will be more focused on that, how that vision would be achieved. And as we look at more of these in detail, ensuring that the Nature Center is an inviting place to explore throughout the community, empowering visitors to make positive impacts in their neighborhoods, conducting the right kind of programming, and ensuring the Nature Center is equipped to adapt to the variety of diversity in visitors that it serves, and developing new programs, initiatives, and partnerships, providing opportunities for volunteers, support the sensitive management of Maplewood's natural areas, including the preserves that are throughout the community, contributing technical expertise to the development and implementation of citywide sustainability policies, partnerships, cultivating those as we continue forward, and broadly marketing programming for the area. As we look at some of the strategic opportunities that we talk about, I think there's three kind of core components to this: the delivery efficiencies and effectiveness of what the Nature Center can provide, expanding the overall impact, looking at that longer term, and then how do we improve the visitor experience. We sort of categorize these throughout, and we've listed these sort of in just a really simple bullet summary form, but these are some of the key components we're thinking about for improvements to the Nature Center and as a part of this master plan. Storage was a big concern, obviously, from staff, and this is one of the pieces that we looked at early on, reconfiguring some of that storage and being able to bring materials all to one site, so an expanded shed. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Exploring opportunities to better use technologies or skills in and around for anything from programming and registration components. Strengthening relationships with the Nature Center staff and other city departments so we can better utilize skills, i.e. could be parks maintenance, could be IT communications for that outreach. Perhaps provide a vehicle that can be stored on site to aid in that outreach to some of those different locations throughout the community that are so cherished for programming. Think about a groundskeeper position that maybe it's a portion that could be dedicated just to that site, just so there's familiarity with the Nature Center itself and to help sort of take the burden off of staff in that location. Look at cultivating partnerships with schools and continuing that, building that over time, bringing programs to the people, that sense of outreach that already goes to the community preserves. And then continue to lead by example by showcasing the best management practices as the sort of city steward for sustainability, maximizing those hand-on learning opportunities, digital marketing and interpretation and outreach, sort of a new technology that we're seeing in some of the nature centers across the area here as well. And then thinking about longer term, maybe reconfiguration of some of the presentation spaces to help with some of those on-site exhibits. And then as well as thinking about reconfiguring the building that may provide a little bit more access to visitors while other group programs are occurring, so there isn't really a conflict between different user groups on the site like there is today. So as we talk about expanding the impact of the Nature Center, we sort of looked at opportunities. Here with the orange circles, you can kind of see some overlap between some of those preserve outreach areas as well as some of the nearby schools and where they might be in a walkable distance to help really kind of cater and focus in on where some of this outreach could take shape. So in and around the Nature Center itself, Beaver Creek, the Priory, Trout Brook, and Gladstone Savannah seem to rise to the top just geographically as some locations that could help aid in that as well. So improving the visitor experience, to talk a little bit more about this piece, repair or replace the boardwalk. I think that's it, identified in the current capital improvement plan to look at that here in the near term. Looking at improving some of the surfacing of the trails, the entry area to the building, bringing that to ADA compliance. Other things that were talked about, a bird blind, welcoming trailhead gateway, some confusion on whether it's open or not with the current gate. The nature play yard, improving that over time and improving connections from the broader community, even Century Avenue in and other streets to allow for sort of that multimodal connectivity to the Nature Center. We also talked a little bit more about multimedia technology. This could help in translation for multilingual components as sort of the entry component to the Nature Center, but it could also help in some of the programming and sort of the education components. And then refining the exhibits and bringing them in so they could seasonally change to bring more people to the Nature Center more frequently. One topic that was talked about was the notion of a trail cam footage linking online with the ability to come to the Nature Center and talk through that. So as we look at all those components, we sort of put together a little package of perhaps how this could come to light over the future. And I think the priorities that we talk about, near term, are looking at obviously the boardwalk repair or replacement in the near term, the ability to build that shed in sort of a reconfiguration of the existing location, but expand it so we can bring sort of all the necessities and programming tools to this one location, get it away from additional storage and trips up here to City Hall. And then we looked at it, the ADA accessible entry. Sort of that next phase may look at additional trail improvements, and this could take place over maybe 1 to 6 years, we're sort of identifying. Technology upgrades in the building for the exhibits, that idea of the expanded kiosk. Perhaps the garage and the vehicle combination to aid in that outreach to the variety of different preserves throughout the community, and then adding some additional signage, even off of Century Avenue, to call the place out a little bit more. And then longer term, we looked at play yard improvements, strengthening the path connection, perhaps more parking if that's in concert with maybe a potential small building expansion to the north that could add another classroom space, and then another sort of exhibit expansion, as well as a little reading room and some other kind of interesting features for the building. So those have been talked about in sort of the longer term, and then putting all those together here over the time frame of sort of an immediate need of those 2 or 3 core components, midterm or near term, 1 to 6 years, and then long term as well. So just for reference, the building plan that exists today sort of has that irregular shape to the north side of the building. Exhibit room is the main classroom. At the same time, there is another small meeting room, but some conflicts with the exhibits could exist. But then we did look at expanding the shed immediately to the east. We are sort of bound, can't go too much further to the east because of a sanitary sewer easement that's there, but shaping that shed to allow for flexibility of storage use, as well as sort of tool storage and other items that they can kind of gear up for the trips out to the preserve. The garage would be a very simple garage that could be then retrofitted for additional tool storage or the vehicle. And then perhaps longer term, looking at that small building expansion to the north to add another classroom and maybe that small wing for a reading room component as well. Funding, we know, thinking about long term what that means, obviously there's a variety of ways to look at this. We see a number of outside funding opportunities from friends groups, local businesses, public health, watershed district, even looking at other cities or school districts to aid in some of the additional programming support or funding for any of the capital improvements. Obviously, other in-kind contributions could be a part of that through school districts and nonprofits, even DNR programs and grants there. And then just overall being more efficient with the existing resources that we have. The vehicle leasing, trail maintenance, communications, marketing, even utilizing some Census Serve crews for maintenance throughout. So we just sort of outlaid some of those key components of estimated potential budget ranges for those. Obviously, those will be discussions as you think about that longer term, but helping us sort of prioritize key components for the Nature Center. Looking near term really at that shed replacement and the boardwalk upgrades, and then other opportunities for more experience enhancements right at the Nature Center and aiding with that additional outreach with things like that vehicle and the shed, et cetera. One last thing here, just operational items. They've been working on tracking a number of metrics on visitorship and who's coming to the Nature Center, continuing that. Obviously exploring partnerships and alternative funding sources with school groups and others. Continuing to promote staff professional development. They're really seen as a strong resource within the community and continuing to strengthen that over time. Optimizing the visitor center's use. You know, we're sort of bracketing how these fit into the near and long term. And expanding those citywide programs, starting maybe remotely with the vehicle component, maybe some event offerings as well. Those can grow over time. And then continued support through best management practices and integrating Nature Center with the experience of learning with Maplewood students. So that could be, you know, every fifth grader or third grader gets to go through a program at the Nature Center or something like that. So with that, thank you for the overview of some of the findings from the master plan, and Ann and I and Audra will be available for questions that you have.
Council, questions, comments? They're all just dying to ask something. Oh. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I think, you know, the Nature Center for me is an interesting situation, right? Because I think it's an incredible asset for the city, which I totally believe in. I think the programming that goes on there is fantastic. I think the staff does a fantastic job, and it's remarkable the work that volunteers put in. I think the critical question I have, and I don't know the answer yet, but the critical question I have is this something the city should be in the business of doing? Or is this something that would be better managed as a nonprofit that the city supports? Is it something that might be better managed in partnership with the schools? I think we have to ask ourselves those questions as a council, because you know, there are those things that are core to running a city, and there are those things that, you know, like we found with the community center in the past, that we realized we weren't very good at, and there were other people who were better at doing it. So I think this is an okay question for us to ask, and we might answer it and say, yes, absolutely, we should stay in the city. That could be the answer. But I think if we're not answering that question, or not asking the question and trying to understand that, I think we're shirking our responsibility there. Because the reality is, you know, the Nature Center is, again, a fantastic asset, but it's a relatively small number of residents who use it a lot and are really passionate about it. And there's a whole lot of folks I talk to that don't even know it's there. And so we have to balance that out as far as resources. And when we're talking about, you know, $1.5 million worth of investment, that's a lot of money for us to be talking through. And I think also we really need to think through on these master plans, like, I understand you need storage, totally get that. Do we need a $75,000 shed? Not sure, right? Like, we could probably get a pretty good one at Menards for $1,500. Is that, what do we get for the dollars there? Is there a return on investment for the residents of Maplewood? And again, maybe there is, but I think we have to ask some of those tough questions. And as we continue this conversation, it's, I think, when I look at the dollar amounts and when I look at the role it plays in the city, it does give me some pause. So, be interested to see what my colleagues have to say about that. But it's been sort of weighing on my mind lately.
Anyone else? Don't all scream at once. Well, I'll take you on a little bit on that one. Over the long haul, like from day one, 40 years ago, the Nature Center is part of who we are. It's not an add-on. It's part of who we are. And it is actually in great deal responsible, the Nature Center and staff, for the fact that we are environmental leaders in the whole region. And we can't back down on that now. Trust me. Because everybody's looking at, how did you get there? What did you do to get there? Why are you so good at this? And it's because we care about the environment, about our natural resources, about all the things we've been blessed with, which unfortunately for some other places they don't have. Too bad for them. I think we have to value it really highly. Do I think that all of these things are absolutely necessary for that to happen? No.
Mm-hmm.
You know, master plans are a combination of necessity and dream. They always have been. They always will be. And some of these are like the boardwalk. You know, I'll start losing people that come to go to the Nature Center through the boardwalk into the drink. That might not be a very good idea. So some of these things are an absolute necessity. The ADA door is a necessity. Should have been a long time ago. That's not good. So those things we do have to look at. We would do it anywhere else in the city if we had those issues. So that's it. But I was talking to the city manager earlier today, and as I read through all these things, the one that hit me the most, and I played this over in my head several times all weekend, is the vehicle. We have a whole line of auto dealers on Highway 61. Anybody else thinking what I'm thinking? I think we should try and get a group of people, whoever they may be it the friends at the helm, I don't know, to start fundraising to get a certain amount of money. And then we go with that wad of money in our hands and just about dare one of those auto dealers to match it and give us a van for which we will put their name on the back. Happens all the time. We don't have to leave town to look for a car dealership. You can go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Or maybe you could turn it into a contest for all I know. I don't care. And what struck me was that there are so many things that go on other places. And that doesn't mean the Nature Center building and site isn't important, but their outreach is huge, and that's the thing we want to do more of. And it would solve part of the issue of they load everything in a car, they unload it again, they load it up for the next place and unload it again. It's a waste of staff time. And then if you forgot something, you have to live without it because you're not going to trot all the way back to the Nature Center to get it. And then I saw a piece on the news last night, I don't know if anyone else saw it, from Brooklyn Park. Parks and Rec on the go. They have 2 vans. They're like a minivan that's been converted to a panel truck type thing. And they have these, I hate to say it, 3M skins on the side with all the doodads and, you know, what a wonderful thing it is. And then you could slap somebody's volunteer name on the back. But they've been taking their park and rec programs to much more than their parks. They did something last summer. I missed that part. I don't know if it was their parks or what it was. But they've been going to apartment complexes in their city all summer for 2 weeks at a time. And it's a combination nature study, park and rec. No. They have everything from beanbag games to, it may sound funny, but kids playing tag, because guess what? A lot of kids don't do that anymore. To an art and craft project. And there were kids who had obviously never handled any of these things before. And so they were helping each other. It was a wonderful outreach. And they said they were just overwhelmed. So I'm thinking that we need to get better at, okay, Parks and Rec and Nature Center are all part of one. And we've always talked about it, but we haven't lived it very well sometimes. And they're doing a lot of these things on their own, but what about if it's a conscious effort that this is what we want to do? And then the fundraising could be done by everybody. And it would be a humongous boost in outreach. And it's something we could focus on. Everybody involved could say, okay, our our focus for the next 2 years or whatever is to raise enough money to get somebody interested in filling in the blank with the rest of the van. I just think it's an idea waiting to hatch. And it might be a good place to start. It's just a way, and it may save on how soon you have to do things to buildings and expand your programs all in one. Just a thought. Anybody else? Bill? Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Neblett.
Thank you. Couple of things. Just in talking about what you're talking about, the on the go, the community ad on the community whatever on the
Park and Rec on the go.
Yes, it sounds very similar to something that District 622 was doing this summer in their community ed programs, which leads me to talking about in the past how connected the schools were with the Nature Center. And I think that that's still a huge, huge opportunity for, yes, I think right now the programs that I see are for the younger kids, but I also think about high school kids. What if you had programs for high school students who were interested in possibly becoming an environmental scientist? Could a class be created from there? But you can only do that kind of stuff when you partner with the schools like that. So, and I know in the past, there has been a relationship, a more connected relationship, attached to funding, at 622. So anything that we can do to recreate, encourage that relationship once more, I don't think we can go wrong there either. But other than that, I think you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Councilmember Knutson.
Let me turn on the mic. I appreciate Councilmember Smith bringing up the issue. It was interesting, and when I read this, I got the feeling that you have a lot of peer support, a lot of others that are involved in nature centers that really respect what you do with relatively, let's say, modest resources and stuff. So it seems like the spirit of Councilman Juniman was talking about is really to get behind this thing and really make it something really special. I know this may sound corny, but animals really draw people. My wife and I are volunteers at something called Wild and Free in Garrison, Minnesota, and we take in injured animals all over. So we became transporters. So we transport rafters from the Rafter Center to there. Last week we took a falcon, and then a couple of weeks ago we picked up a fawn in Malacca and brought it up, and all kinds of cool stuff. And then in my farm we release eagles and other things, and it just draws a huge crowd. We just get on a phone tree and call all the neighbors, and they come over and watch these eagles go. And then Saturday or Sunday we donated a washing machine to this thing, and to keep me going, they brought me into the fawn cage during feeding, and all these fawns were licking my knees, So I'm hooked. All I'm saying, in this whole process, we probably should, there's so many ways that we could enthusiastically support this nature center and make it what I think hearing from the staff and from what you read in this thing is a gem waiting to be polished a bit.
Thank you. Oh, no, not again. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you for the discussion, everybody. I do want to be clear. I think where I'm coming from is that I think the Nature Center is a really good thing. I'm not sure that the city is in the best place to scale and grow the impact the nature could have on our community as much as it could be. Maybe that's not the city by itself, right? It could be the city in partnership with the district and, someone else. It could be through partnerships that we do that. It could be other things. I just, I guess I want to apply pressure to us as a council and all of us here to say, what could we do differently that we're not doing today to get this nature center to have more impact on our community, and to get creative and to get comfortable with different ways of looking at it. and to just not limit ourselves to saying we're going to do what we're doing today, but a little bit more, right? But to say, what if we had a crazy idea to start a nonprofit, or a crazy idea to go into a joint powers agreement with the school district and really districts, whatever. Whatever, and maybe it's one district. It could be, Kathy. It doesn't have to be all of them.
No, it has to be both of them.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
How about you don't interrupt me? I just want to push that idea and say that if we're going to make these kinds of investments, I think we also have to double down on how do we grow the impact of the Nature Center, because I do have trouble justifying the investments if we stay at the scale we're at today. I don't think we need to do that, and I think we can build that vision together. And I will say, an alternative idea for the vehicle. Apparently, we have 4 squad cars coming off duty. That in a trailer. Just saying. But so I just want to make sure everyone knows that I'm not as curmudgeonly as Councilmember Knutson may have made me out, but I am going to push on this a little bit because I do think there's more there.
Okay, has anybody got any other hot ideas or not? Okay, I think we've exhausted this group. This is a good thing, I think. So what is the pleasure of the management here? We adopt the plan, but do we go further?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. I would certainly encourage you to adopt the master plan. I think it's a really good document. It's a guidepost for us to work from moving forward. I actually concur with Councilmember Smith on pushing ourselves to look for additional partnerships and opportunities. And as you know, when we had some discussions about a potential partner earlier this summer, that didn't quite work out. The numbers just didn't work out. But that doesn't mean there aren't other partners out there. So I think we have some work to do. I have challenged Ann and her staff to look at different ways to enhance revenue, and Ann will attest to that we've had some discussions about that as well as with Audra. And I think we have some work to do, but I think we're willing to step up and look at some different ways to do things at the Nature Center. So I really appreciate all your comments, but I would appreciate also a vote to accept the plan tonight.
Okay, I move that we accept the Maplewood Nature Center Master Plan.
Second.
It's moved by Juneman and seconded by Neblett that we accept the master plan for the Nature Center. Any further discussion? I have one comment. The environmental school in Maplewood is in the Roseville district. Okay, all those in favor of adopting the plan?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We are now on I-1, update regarding residential curbside trash and recycling contract negotiation. That's Mr. Thompson, I believe.
It is. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So at the last council meeting, the council, the staff provided you with a summary of our responses to our RFP for new trash and recycling services effective at the beginning of next year. And as part of your review, you did authorize us to negotiate with the first-ranked respondents for both trash and recycling services, with Republic Services being ranked as the #1 trash proposal, and Tennis Sanitation providing the #1 recycling proposal. And that was based on the scores that had been determined by the Proposal Review Committee, based on their criteria, noting that they were also both competitive from an economic standpoint, i.e. they were the lowest price alternatives for for each of their individual proposals. We just wanted to come to you tonight to provide you with an update of where we are at with those contract negotiations without revealing all of our cards on what the terms of the contracts are, because we have not finalized those. And this is something we said we would do at the last meeting, is we could provide you with an update and certainly explore contingency plans if they're needed, but at this time, staff not recommending any sort of change of course of action from the council. So just to cover some of the key points with the recycling contract with Tennis, we have negotiated with them around multifamily dumpsters. So today, as part of the current contract, multifamily can opt in, but they have the city's trash carts. So we would do a program where willing multifamily owners could also do a dumpster in lieu of carts. We've worked with them on public education materials, noting that that's important to the recycling program. And then we've also, in the draft contract that was in the RFP, include some enhanced performance monitoring and liquidated damage provisions. And so that allows for kind of a defined process for communication of cures and timelines when issues arise from the ongoing operations of the city's recycling services, or Tennis is operating their recycling services. And then there is a specific schedule of liquidated damages in the contract for various violations or problems in the contractual terms. The last piece we've had quite a bit of conversation around is the cart ownership. I know this has come up as the council has talked about the RFP. So just to give you an update on how we're going to address that, Tennis, in their proposal, did provide 2 separate fees. It would be a higher fee for managing city-owned carts because they would have some cart management responsibilities. That's their perspective. And then there would be a lower fee associated with Tennis keeping their existing carts as part of their services. What we are planning to do, as we've talked about that, what we are planning to do is bring back to you a single contract with Tennis. It would have alternatives for you to adopt with either the trash, with the city carts or the Tennis carts, and you can fully consider the price implications of either of those options when you approve that final contract. So when you see the final version, you will retain both options. And then secondly, with Republic Services, some of the key points of our negotiation on this contract, they have included in the new contract a designated operations manager. So Romac Franklin would continue as the municipal manager, but they've also identified an operations manager that the city could work directly with. We've successfully put in a pay-as-you-throw program, or a framework, I should say, for that program and how that could potentially be implemented in the future. And then we've received a lot more detail and able to put in the contract information on how the management of our city-owned carts will occur as part of this new contract. A couple of the key points that did come out at the last meeting on customer service. So they are agreeable to our requirement in the draft contract around providing a frequently asked question that could be reviewed and kind of having a shared frequently asked questions that we could administer together. They've also, I think Councilmember Smith had mentioned kind of using their existing customer service metrics. They do have those, and so we are talking to them about providing regular updates to the city that they would release those metrics to us for our review and information so we could track those over time and address any issues that come up as part of their internal review of customer service. Lastly, we do have the same performance monitoring and liquidated damages provisions in the draft contract with Republic Services, and we are looking to add something into those liquidated damages for billing issues that may occur, given some of the issues that happened, the issue that happened last week. So those are kind of the main key points, again, without divulging all of the details of the negotiations. So as I mentioned, we're not requesting any action from the council. This is merely an update to tell you where we're at. We'll continue to finalize the draft contracts with these key points that we talked about tonight. In our schedule, we are still on schedule with your direction to come back to you on September 9th with the final versions of the draft contracts with both Republic and Tennis. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or take any direction and feedback the council has.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we've talked a lot about carts, so bear with me. But do we have a cart problem we're solving by switching carts? And then my second question is, all into the residents, all different funding sources, whether it's on their water bill or their other bill or wherever it's coming in, is that fee higher for new carts, or what would be the net impact for spend for residents, new carts versus old carts? Does that make sense?
I understood the first part. I don't know if I completely understood the second part.
So the fee, the management fee, does that also include the actual cost of the cart? in both cases?
No, so it wouldn't, because that's just for them to manage our cart. So there would be we'd have to do something similar to what we did in our trash program to have a city fee associated with the payment of the capital
So is there a
expenditure.
tennis fee today for the cart lease as well as for the management, or is that all wrapped into the?
It's
I'm sorry
wrapped.
if I'm asking hard questions now.
It must be wrapped into the price, because
It is.
if I go back to how the billing happens today, it's a fee that's.
If you could follow up with us just to clarify
Yeah.
before our next one, I want to understand like net.
Sure.
What's the difference?
Comparing
to
the similar
resident?
programs, sure, we can absolutely do that.
So, and then the first question, cart problem definition.
Councilman- Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm a little new at this. So the discussions, as I understand, is just the ability for the city to kind of retain the asset, to look at the long game of managing contracts for recycling services, so that as contracts change, it's a lot easier for the city to manage a transition in service provider if we own the carts. I think that's the big picture.
Yes.
Okay, but we're not switching.
This time, we're not.
So could we switch carts next time?
Well, the longer you wait, the more they cost, but whatever. The reason it came up was because that's what we do with trash carts originally.
Okay.
And it gives you the ability to switch providers without going that, okay, now your previous provider will come and get your old cart, and then on a different day, they'll come and drop your new one, and that's kind of the nightmare they went through in St. Paul. That was the theory behind it.
Several nightmares, but yeah.
Yeah, really.
All right.
Councilmember Neblett, anything? Councilmember Knudsen? Okay. I'm glad to hear that there's the new portion of both contracts, particularly the trash contract, about the risk factor. And I will identify the elephant in the room. For everybody who was wondering what in the world that bill was they got last week, they thought it must be for Maplewood, Texas, I presume. For everyone who doesn't know, if you got the incorrect bill, you should have gotten a robocall, and you will get a follow-up letter, and don't pay that bill, because it was outrageous. We all know that. Lots of people had minor cardiac arrest. What happened to my trash bill? So I'm glad that got worked out. I know it took a fair amount of staff input. And so that's probably one of the things that led to that piece of the negotiating. The team that worked on this, Bill and I and the other people, the ENR people and so on, wanted to make sure that those kinds of things, because other things have happened in the last 7 years, that we went, where's the explanation for that? So now they're adding the operations manager. That, to people who don't know, that's a really big piece, because that person then will be responsible for handling this type of thing, and it won't go through the crack. So it was a huge piece. Thank you for negotiating that. I think it was you and Sean, but I'm not sure, so blessings on both of you. Anything else you want him to know? So we say, forward, as we say.
Will do.
Well, thank you. And finally, under new business, the master funding agreement, Gold Line Bus Rapid Transit Project, City Project 14-05.
Acting Mayor, members of the council, I know this is the item everybody has been anxiously waiting on. As you know, the Gold Line is a 10-mile dedicated bus rapid transit line that's going to connect St. Paul, Maplewood, Landfall, Oakdale, and Woodbury. So as you go up in levels of government, you know, the paperwork gets more and more. Essentially what this is, it's called a master funding agreement. It's an agreement between, the Metropolitan Council and the city that sets the framework on how our supplemental agreements would be reached. We're not obligated to enter into a supplemental agreement, but it sets that framework. So for example, if we have a project, let's say we had a sewer pipe in the project area that needed to be replaced, we could have them do it as part of their project. And then it sets the framework on how we would agree to pay them for that work, or vice versa. We might do something for them and they would reimburse us. So it essentially sets the framework on how we're going to handle these. All supplemental agreements would have to, get approved by council, and I'm available for any questions.
Anyone with a question? I have one that's maybe a no-brainer, but we've had some of those tonight. What happens if you sign this and you get into it and you're in like supplemental agreement number 3, and there is no agreement? People can't agree who should pay for what. Then what happens?
Acting Mayor, members of the council, so the language actually in the master funding agreement says, does not bind the city to enter into a supplemental agreement. If we're not agreeing with what the terms are, then the item wouldn't happen, for example.
Thank you. I just want to make sure so people at home know that we're not signing away their lives and our futures all at one time. It's not
That is
happening.
correct.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion by Neblett and a second by Smith to agree to the master funding agreement for the Goal Line Bus Rapid Transit Project. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Please signify if you agree by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes all. Does anyone else have anything else? Not you. Anyone else? Staff, anything more? Okay, thank you all for this long, charming evening.